A young man was driving down a lonely country road late at night. It was a cool and misty night. It started to rain. As he drove around a curve, he saw a person ahead. He slowed down. It was a young woman. She was on his side of the road with her thumb out. She wanted a ride. What is a hitchhiker doing out here all alone? And why is she here on a cold and rainy night? He thought to himself. The woman was about his age. Her wet hair hung over her face, and she looked cold. She was wearing an old-fashioned white dress. It was dirty and torn. He pulled over and rolled down his window. "Do you want a ride?" he asked. She gave a slight smile but said nothing. The man reached over to open the passenger door. Instead, she opened the back door. Then she climbed inside. She settled into the back seat. She was shaking with cold. "Here, take my jacket," he said. The woman took his jacket and wrapped it around her. He continued to drive. After a few minutes, the woman seemed to relax. But she said nothing. He looked at her in his rearview mirror. Her skin was pale, and she seemed distracted and confused. The woman puzzled him. Was she lost? Did she have an argument with her boyfriend? Did she run away from home? He decided to ask only one question. "Where are you going?" The woman stared at him for a moment. Then she told him her address. He knew the area. It was about 15 kilometers away, and it wasn't too far out of his way. She said she lived in a little white house with a rose garden. "I need to get home," the woman said softly. "They're waiting for me." He continued to look in his rearview mirror at her. He saw her smile as she thought of home. He tried to make small talk with the woman. "It's a bad night to go for a walk," he said. She didn't say anything. "Do you think it will rain all night?" he asked. She just made a sound like She didn't want to talk, so he left her alone. Soon she lay down on the seat. She fell asleep quickly. The man could no longer see her in the rearview mirror, but he heard her breathing softly. The man found the address and pulled into the driveway. There were no lights. He turned off his engine. He turned around to wake the young woman, but the back seat was empty. How strange, he thought. How can a woman just disappear like that? He scratched his head. Did she jump out of the car? He wondered. Why didn't I see anything? He thought maybe she was just embarrassed. Maybe she felt silly for hitchhiking in the rain in a torn dress. He backed out of the driveway and drove home. That night the man had a hard time falling asleep. He couldn't get the woman off his mind. When he finally slept, he had strange dreams. He tossed and turned the whole night. When he woke up the next morning, his body felt heavy. He remembered the young woman. Then he remembered something, his jacket. The woman still had it. He decided to return to the house. He wanted to check on the young woman, and he wanted to ask for his jacket back. He ate breakfast, got dressed, and drove back to the little white house. It looked the same as the night before. He pulled into the driveway. He got out of the car and walked to the front door. Just as he was about to ring the doorbell, the door opened a little. An old woman with white hair looked at him through the crack. "Can I help you?" she asked. The man gave the old woman his name. He asked to see the young woman who lived there. The old woman got a sad look on her face. She said she lived alone. The man was confused for a moment. Was he at the wrong house? He looked around. He saw the rose garden by the side of the house. "I gave her a ride last night. I drove her here," the man explained. "I picked her up down the road. She was cold, so I gave her my jacket. I forgot to get it back from her." The old woman opened the door. She asked him to come inside. The man saw a picture of the young woman on the wall. "That's her," he said. "That's who I dropped off last night." The old woman turned to the man. "That can't be true. That's my daughter, Amelia. But she's dead. Someone hit her with a car about 15 kilometers up the road. It was a hit and run. The police never caught the driver." "I'm so sorry to hear that," the man said. "If I may ask, when did that happen?" 40 years ago, said the old woman. "Her grave is in the cemetery down the road." The man was speechless. Was the old woman crazy? Was this some kind of joke? He wasn't sure what to believe. He felt bad about troubling the old woman. He said he was sorry again, and he left the house quickly. The man decided to drive to the cemetery. It wasn't very big. He parked his car and walked around for a few minutes. He looked around at the gravestones. Then he saw it, his jacket. It was lying over a gravestone. He picked up the jacket. Then he looked at the writing on the gravestone. It was Amelia's grave. He looked at the date. The day before was the 40-year anniversary of Amelia's death.